Welcome back to Kairyu Rider on my favorite road in Japan, where I just bought a 2022 MT-07 brand new in 2023. Let's get into it. First and foremost, full disclosure. I work in a Yamaha dealership in Tokyo, so I did not pay full price for this. I got an employee discount. But never fear, because I will still crap all over this bike for all the parts where it's not so good. One other thing is January 5th, 2023, I brought this bike home for the first time. January 6th, I woke up with COVID. So I had to quarantine for a week, and during my unpaid week of quarantine, I quarantined out in the parking lot. And here are some videos coming in the future that you'll see to explain most of those mods. As for the mods I did at the dealership, I'll splice in something right now to explain it.
These are some cheap sliders from Daytona with reflective and glow-in-the-dark tape. These are the same transparent handguards from my Tracer to look nice but keep the cold off my hands. This is the same electronic toll reader, or ETC, for the highway toll roads, and you can see the green light that it's working. This is the same USB charger from the SV650. I connected it to the battery to charge my headphones while at a stop, and it shows me the charge in the battery. This is an old Daytona phone mount that I got from someone who didn't want it anymore, attached to a bar extender, nothing special off of Amazon. And these are Kijima heated grips. I didn't like the Yamaha OEMs, how they looked or how they functioned. These, remember the heat setting, you just have to press the button one time to get it back on every time you start the bike.
And there you go. I explained why in my Goodbye Tracer video, but I have a loan on this bike. But as far as what this bike is putting me back, it is 7,000 yen a month, 1,800 yen a month in insurance, full coverage, living in Tokyo. And I expect to get between 3 and 5 kilometers better fuel economy than the Tracer. That being said, I have now done 100 kilometers in the city, 100 kilometers in the mountains, so let's talk about how I feel about this bike. First and foremost, a bit of a mistake. If you saw the Tracer video,
the power that this engine makes compared to the weight of the bike, it always leaves me going faster than I should, and I can't say how many times the TC has saved me from a slide.
I thought maybe I should get a slightly slower bike so that I can have a good life expectancy as an expecting father. This bike is 20 kilos less. The torque comes in a bit lower than the Tracer, and I have lost 14 kilos over the last few months. So between that significant weight difference and the power delivery difference, I think this is faster. And I'm not the only one that thinks it's faster. The police also seem to think it's faster. Well, now I'm getting stopped by the cops. But as far as the engine performance, forgetting power for a moment, it is not as lumpy as the SV650, it is not as vibrational as the Tracer 900 was. The sound, it sounds better than the Tracer in my opinion. The Tracer had a bit too mechanicalness of the sound. And it sounds not as good as the stock SV650. As far as the exhaust goes, do you need an exhaust like every YouTuber is telling you? No, they just want views. Is it better with an aftermarket exhaust? I'm hoping so, because they're not cheap. But the fun factor, it's no mystery that the MT-07 is an extremely fun bike. And as far as the seating position in the chassis, I find it very confidence-inspiring and very good for mountain roads like this. Way easier for filtering in Tokyo. Of course, coming from a touring bike, it would be. But I don't imagine getting tired of this bike anytime in the foreseeable future. The only downside I can say for sure is if my wife did not own a bike, or if my kid was old enough to ride with me, I'm not sure how amazing this is for two-up riding. That's a bridge that may have to get crossed at one point. But if it doesn't matter to you, don't think about it. Because solo riding, pretty comfortable and pretty good. And why is there lumps of salt in the street? As far as the suspension, every YouTuber you've seen has told you it's garbage, with few exceptions. Now, As someone who works with Yamaha and works on Yamahas, I've ridden from 2014 up to 2022. Yes, the 2014s had some pretty bad suspension. It wasn't so bad on the 2018 range, and this one, maybe my skill level's not that good, but I don't see a problem with it yet. Maybe as it breaks in, it'll get softer like the SV did. Maybe it won't. But for now, I'm not going to invest. With that being said, the employee discount and the shiny gold that is Olin's, well, maybe. And my wife is in full support of all the modifications I'm doing, because after the employee discount, I still have enough to pay for the childbirth, even with all the mods. And since this may be the last bike for a long time, my wife suggests make it as amazing as I can. Which is why here's a bunch of parts that are also in the mail. And on the topic of those parts in the mail, a quick nod to the seat. The shape of the seat is much more comfortable than the Tracer, be it slightly less padding. It's significantly better than a stock SV650, but I am replacing the seat with a Bagster because I like touring, and this seat definitely feels like it could hurt your bum after 30 hours or so. I'm a 10-hour kind of guy. In reference to the brakes, these are not as good as what I remember on the CB650R or the Triumph Street Triple Triumph Trident, but it's comparable to the SV650, comparable to the Tracer, but not quite as good. But it's definitely enough to stop you. So far, I don't have a reason to replace it. If I do, I'm definitely not going to do a full system overhaul. I will just do something simple like brake pads. I know there's some proper brands you can go through. I'll go for a made in Japan brand that I can get at a good price. That's ever so slightly more bitey. But for now, in the first 200 kilometers, I think it's pretty good to go like this. Now let's talk competition. First and foremost, I almost traded for a newer Tracer, but it still has some vibrations. It's still a big heavy bike. It just didn't sparkle with me because it felt a bit too much like a computer. It has every electronic you could want. It'll soon have adaptive cruise control, but you didn't feel one with it. You felt like a computer was doing everything for you. Now, I'm not saying traction control is bad. In fact, in the beginning of this ride, I was a bit nervous riding without traction control for the first time in such a long time. But the Michelin Road 5 tires haven't let me down. The soft suspension does mean you get slightly better grip. I think it's a good way to grow as an experienced rider. I would definitely not say this is a good beginner bike. A good first big bike? Sure. A first ever bike? I have accidentally wheelied 3 times, so no, I would not recommend this as a first bike, but live your own life. But comparing it to the SV650, there's a difference in the bikes. The SV gives you a real proper V-twin, this gives you a synthetic V-twin, with some ups and downs in that, but the SV sounds better out of the box. The SV looks cool in its own way, where it's not trying to be some new super thing, and it's not that old despite what people think. I have no intention to convince my wife to walk away from her SV650, depending how our finances hold up over the next few months. As far as why I bought a 2022 instead of a 2023, there's 2 major reasons. The first is the only updates for the 2023 are the TFT dash, which I think this LCD looks much better, and the quick shifter, which might not even be standard, might be an optional extra. But I know for a fact you can install the quick shifter from the R7 on this, and right now I'm enjoying throttle blipping, and it just connects you with the bike a bit more than extra electronics. Look at the gears. I've got my hand on the end, not even clutching. That's just fun for me. Now the 2 main competitors coming out, the Honda Hornet and the GSX-8S. As far as the Hornet, I can imagine it'll be better. According to the reviews, the suspension is upside down, but it's not actually that much of a better performer. All the features and electronics, I kind of like this. I'm not someone who's going to say electronics are bad. I like them, but I do feel more connected with this bike. It is something I am in control of, not a computer program that you're going to trust. How often do smartphones wear out and just stop working from a completely digital issue nothing to do with the hardware. So why are you gonna risk your life on a smartphone? But the Honda also has the issue of, I mean, look at it. Do you like that? The colors are cool, but really? Not me. As far as the Suzuki, I gotta say I think that one will perform better. The lower torque and higher torque level is pretty impressive. There's a lot about it that I like quite a bit. Unlike the Honda, and like this in Kawasaki, it has an oil sight glass instead of a dipstick. Or 2 oil openings like a Triumph. But if the Suzuki came out at the same time, that would be a tough choice. But the lightness of this, the fuel economy of this, the extreme employee discount, for me, this is an obvious choice. Now, the one thing this has, that no matter what your opinion of the new bikes is, this wins at the moment, is aftermarket. Most of this bike has not changed that much in its 8 years in the making, going on 9 years. So, a lot of the aftermarket has already been done. And because this came out like this in 2020 for Europe, 2021 for the States, and 2022, 2023 are pretty much the same, there's a lot of options. There's not just a aftermarket exhaust, there's more than I care to count. This bike is going to have endless mods right away. I've already got most of the things I want in the mail. The only things I haven't bought that I might consider buying would be better suspension and brake pads. But again, I'm not sure it needs it right now. So this bike, you can make it exactly how you want right away. Whereas the others, yes, the aftermarket will come, but Japan gets Japanese bikes for some reason very late. So it's currently January 18th, and I would have to wait till late summer to get any of those bikes, and then all the aftermarket makers would have to have how much time to do the R&D with the bikes after we all get them. So maybe in 2 years there's stuff, but things like MC Cruise Control, I don't imagine that's coming to those ride-by-wire bikes for a long time, because for some stupid reason, the makers don't want to make it. They're not making me buy a bigger bike that I'll hate just to get cruise control. What they're doing is saying, Yamaha sold this, and I wasn't going to buy an MT-09. And they gave their money away to MC Cruise because they didn't want my money, and they didn't want to have a cruise control option. That's on them, not me. MC Cruise? Here's hoping you sold me a great product. You're definitely amazing customer service. But let me take a minute to find a spot to pull over and walk around the bike real quick and show you a preview of what's to come. This seems as good a place as any to pull over and talk to a bike in a foreign language. But more or less, this is what we got with the mod so far.